Hi, my name is Rebecca Mahon. I'm a solicitor in Capital's employment team. This is my colleague Di Shepherd, a senior associate in the team, and we're talking to you today about the new off-payroll working rules. We're hoping to give you a really quick overview, but first just a quick recap, I think.
Yeah, so basically since 6th of April this year, if you provide services to an end client through an intermediary company, which you have a personal interest, so generally that would be a personal service company in which you have a director and you have ownership in that company, then if that end client is a medium or large business, they'll have to assess whether they believe that if there was a hypothetical contract between you and that end client, that you would be employed or self-employed for tax purposes.
So yeah, it is only medium and large end clients that are caught by the new rules, so small companies are exempt and the individual has to have a material interest in the personal service company. Obviously these questions today have been put to us by Gorilla, so they're targeted particularly at the consultant community, but obviously we can advise large businesses as well.
Yeah, so what you may be receiving soon or already received is what a document called a status determination statement. So that's basically a confirmation from the end client whether they believe your contract would be within IR35 or outside, and this will have implications on whether tax and national insurance are deducted from the fee paid to your personal service company.
So one of the questions that we've had from Gorilla is how does IR35 account for holiday pay and sick pay and that kind of thing? It is really important to remember what we're talking about here is a determination of employment status for tax purposes only. It's not that if you have deemed employment status under the off-payroll working rules, you won't have an entitlement to those other employment benefits like sick pay and holiday pay.
Yeah, so what you need to be clear is that IR35 relates to your status for tax purposes. Are you employed or self-employed for tax? For holiday pay, employment rights such as redundancy pay, notice pay, that is your employment status for employment law purposes. And though there's similar legal tests, it doesn't follow if you're inside IR35 that you will automatically have the rights of employment. It really depends on the contract, your relationship with the client, and we'd say get some legal advice on it.
Absolutely. So another question we've had is if you've got a contract which started before the new off-payroll working rules came into force, how is that contract going to be affected? The important thing to note, I suppose, is that you will only be affected for work that happens after the 6th of April. So any work that you've done before the 6th of April that hasn't been paid for yet, that should be paid at the sort of pre-IR35 rate to the extent that anything's changed since the off-payroll working rules came into force for you.
What you need to be aware is that work you provide from the 6th of April onwards may be affected by the end user deeming that the relationship is within IR35 rules. So what you need to do is double check your contract, because the end user could potentially start deducting PAYE deductions from the fee paid to your personal service company. But there may be terms within that contract which prevents that deduction taking place. So again, check your contract and get legal advice if you need it. Another question we've had is what happens if I'm based overseas? Will the off-payroll working rules apply to me? Well, what you need to be aware of is obviously cross-border jurisdictions and tax across several countries is complicated. But what is generally the principle is that the off-payroll working rules apply to UK-based end clients and UK-based contractors. So if you are based overseas, the chances are that the arrangement wouldn't be within off-payroll working rules, but you need to get independent tax advice as to what the appropriate tax would be for those services in your local jurisdiction.
Absolutely. I mean, we're not tax advisors, but the kind of general rule of thumb is that if you wouldn't pay tax in the UK as an employee, you won't pay tax in the UK if you're based outside the UK by virtue of the off-payroll working rules. We've actually done a short blog on this recently, which you can find on our website if it's something that applies to you.
Another question we had is who's responsible for paying national insurance contributions or NICs? Well, if the arrangement is deemed to fall within IR35, then generally it's the fee payer in the supply chain who will be responsible for deducting NICs from any pay to your personal service company. So generally that will be the end client, if they're the entity who pays your personal service company. If you're engaged through an agency, then it'll be the agency making those deductions. But what you need to be aware, as we said before, is that check your contract and check if any deductions for tax and national insurance are permitted under your contract and that you can receive a lower net payment. Otherwise, you could insist on being paid the same amount after tax.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that is really important to note is that if you are deemed to have employment status, that will trigger an obligation on the end client or whoever the fee payer is to also make employer national insurance contributions. That's going to add 13.8% onto your fee. So again, as I said, check your contract to see whether that money can come out of your pocket or whether that's something that the employer has to cover themselves. So given the potential impact on the fees that you can recover under your contract now, should you have deemed employment status, please do feel free to get in touch with us if you do want us to review your contracts or if you've got any other questions about how the off-payroll rules will affect you.
And we advise business owners as well as contractors, so we can equally assist end clients, agencies on IR35 and what the legal implications are if you do engage contractors. And please check out our website. We've got a whole load of resources about IR35, how to check if you are in scope. So check our website out, and I hope this was helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's it. That's IR35 in 5. Thanks very much to Gorilla for organising. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.